Yeah, so Stuart, I really wanted to compliment you on crafting a horror film, Strange Harvest, that actually has the ability to terrorize and to be like genuinely quite menacing because I'm a big fan of horror films and I think it's easy to get a bit jaded with horror and I really love what you've done with this movie in terms of the aping that true crime structure, which is very interesting. And I wondered, could you talk a bit about your influences and like the origin of how you came up with the script?
Sure, sure. Well, I made a film almost 15 years ago now, which makes me feel so old. But I made a found footage film called Grave Encounters way back in the day, and that's like a found footage film about a reality crew, ghost hunting reality crew that goes into a mental institution to find ghosts, and everything goes horribly wrong. But that film had some, in the beginning, it had some interviews that we did with people that worked at the building and stuff like that, or had some connection to it, talking about it. And I just always thought that those interviews were really fun to shoot, and it was just a really cool way to kind of present a horror story just in this way that you don't normally see, which is just kind of this dry procedural, just kind of getting the information. And to me, it just was a great way to. It just makes it a lot more believable in that context because you're just getting all this raw information, if it's well written, of course. So I'd always had that in my head that I'd love to try to do some kind of docu horror thing. And of course, like I saw Poughkeepsie tapes and I love Poughkeepsie tapes. That was like a huge inspiration. I saw that and I was like, oh, this is such a cool thing. I'd love to do that, but maybe do it in a way that's a little more accessible or something, a little bit less gnarly. I mean, I still want it to be gnarly, but in a package that was a little bit easier to digest for a mass audience. So basically, it was actually 2020 when Tiger King, the documentary on Netflix, came out. And I don't know how it was over there, but in the US, it took the country by
It
storm
was
and
huge,
just was it
absolutely
huge
huge.
there? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I'm sure, yeah.
yeah,
So you know how it was, just a big phenomenon. I was right there with it and I was loving it. And it's just such a great series. But at its core, it is a true crime series.
yeah.
People kind of forget about that, but it is actually like a true crime story. It's kind of low stakes, low time true crime, but it is true crime. And it sort of occurred to me at that moment that it was sort of like this flashpoint in the culture or something where I felt like true crime had kind of arrived and it was like everywhere. Because for the longest time, I thought, I never spoke to anyone about listening to true crime. Like I thought I was the only person that would go to sleep at night, listening to stories about murder and mayhem and whatnot.
And then it was validated by Tiger King, right?
That's right. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, I'm not the only weirdo. Everyone's a weirdo. Now suddenly you realize grandma's a weirdo and soccer moms are weirdos and people that you wouldn't expect sometimes that would be into this sometimes really horrific content were huge fans. So it seemed to me like the timing was right. I think I had feared for a while that if I made it that people wouldn't understand what I was kind of trying to ape on or because the thing was is I wanted to do it, but I didn't want to do it at all as like a satire or as a send up. I just wanted to do it really seriously. And I was afraid before that maybe people just wouldn't quite get it. And after I saw Tiger King, I was like, no, the timing is right. People will get it because of how these documentaries are put together. There's like this language that's like established now. So it
Mm.
was kind of that, and then it was very quick. It was like my inspirations are very obvious. I wear them very thinly, like True Detective. The first season I saw that, I was like, this is such an amazing idea of a procedural, but it has kind of this otherworldly element that's kind of on like the peripheral. So, I wanted to do that. And then, of course, a serial killer seemed like the perfect subject for a documentary. And then it was just off to the races, and it kind of came together very quickly after that.
There in the film does a really good job of you observe that there's almost like that hysterical tone to true crime programs. Like there is a very like overwrought sense of like with the edits and the camera work, which complements your story of this serial killer, like Mr. Shiny as he's dubbed. I wondered how hard is that to get that right without overdoing it, like that editorial style.
I don't know. It's just sort of you just sort of feel it out. It's almost like editing like that becomes like music or something when you're putting the pieces together. It just has a certain rhythm and flow, and I think, I didn't base it on any specific documentary or anything like that. I just feel like that this language has kind of been absorbed by everyone, and so I was always just guided by what felt correct what felt like the way it would be put together in a documentary. I was trying to ride this line of a documentary that was a little exploitive and sensationalizing things, but then also like not going too heavy-handed with that and trying to keep one foot in just grimy reality at the same time. So
And then you expertly lace in these breadcrumbs of this incredibly mysterious, like Zodiac style serial killer who may or may not be, more than he seems. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil it, but so was the mythology of this mysterious killer character, was that kind of like baked into the script, or did that evolve like organically as you were shooting it?
that was like actually, the actual script when I wrote it was pretty quick. The bulk of the time that I spent writing it, which took about a year, wasn't the script itself. It was like a Bible of the mythology that this killer believed in, that traced the origins of the religion, if you want to call it that, the cult, back to the very beginning, like toward like throughout all of like time basically to like where it is now, and then like kind of the rules of how it worked, and then at the same time, also, I wrote just a timeline sequentially of chronological events of the crimes themselves in like excruciating detail, like
Mm.
down to like the second that things happened, and like, did neighbors hear? Did neighbors not hear? How long did it take for police to get there? Blah, 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 like every just insane detail of all the crimes. So then when I went to actually write the script, it was much easier. I had my Bible. It was like they're going to talk about the crimes now. Okay, well then here's literally what happened, and then just kind of figuring out what information they would give and what information was sort of like, unnecessary basically. But that's kind of how it was put together. The script maybe took 3 weeks, less than a month probably to write. It was the bulk of the time, a year was just that Bible.
So the background was kind of almost within you already because you'd lived with it. You'd sketched it out, like you say, in this Bible, almost like Bible format. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's because it was important to me that I knew I was going to have this, kind of supernatural, otherworldly element that was, but I wanted there to be an internal logic to it that wasn't just like spooky, ooky, random, weird stuff is happening, but it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't fit into some larger picture. And it was important to me that the internal logic of it all actually made sense, and that like you could scrutinize it and that it would hold up. Because I think that just makes it scarier. And I think even though the movie doesn't give you much information, you just kind of get this textural idea of kind of maybe
Mm.
what's going on in the background. I think when it is correct and when it sort of makes sense to at least some extent, you just sort of feel it more when you're watching it. You're clued into these things that are going on. You're hearing these details, and they do connect. People are smart and they connect the dots. And I think if the thing just doesn't make sense and you're just kind of whatever spooky idea is in there, I don't think it's as effective.
Well, I think you hit on there one of the things that I really liked about the movie, which is you approach, again, without giving anything away, you approach this suggestion of maybe something like Lovecraftian, like might be Lovecraftian, but you approach it and then you back off from it because in the manner of a true crime documentary, like you just said there, you want people to put the clues together, right? You don't want to over explain it. Like, was that a hard line to judge that, or did that emerge naturally?
I guess it's always just you're always treading the line. I think, like my sensibility, of course, is like, and if you've seen Grave Encounters or if you hear about Grave Encounters is a movie that, unlike Paranormal Activity or that kind of found footage style that's very subtle, Grave Encounters is very like in your face. And just because me and the guy that I co-directed with, Colin Minahan, we just like that. We like cinema that sometimes is just bold and like, is just like here's what it is. So I wanted to have some of that in the movie as far as the Lovecraftian elements. I wanted to be like committed to like this is going on, this is what's happening, but at the same time, like I just think it's the beautiful thing about the documentary format, and especially a true crime documentary that's deliberately trying to not sensationalize those elements and just kind of be like, here's what happened, but we don't know what it was, or like we just don't know what that was. I just thought it was just the coolest way to deal with that kind of stuff. And especially, like in a more cinematic standard narrative movie, you kind of there's a structure to these things where you have to sometimes provide answers or like the movie just feels like incomplete or something. But in a documentary, they sometimes just don't have all the information. And so I think that's beautiful though for horror because like
Yeah.
it's always the scariest thing that you don't see it or you're sort of putting this thing together in your imagination. But yeah, it was always just a fine line of trying to it's a tightrope, man. You're right, want to be right there and be like,
Yeah.
here's the thing, here's the scary thing. But I always was dialing it back and always deliberately trying to pull it back a little bit.
Well, it's like Lovecraft himself said it, isn't it? The strongest fear is fear of the unknown. And like you say, when you're adhering to this format in this film, you can leave it relatively open, can't you? And now that is scary. I did find that very, very unsettling. And I thought what also made the film very unsettling is the conviction of the actors who are they are portraying fictional characters but in as realist like true crime a way as possible. And I thought the actors that you've got playing the two central detectives are really good. Like they are really convincing. I mean, it's one thing I suppose to direct actors, but how would you direct actors within this very specific context?
I mean, so much of that, directing is so much down to like just good casting. And
Mm,
so like I wish I could take like all the credit in the world for their performances, but the truth is that, you know, it was like we did extensive casting. It was hard to find the right people because it was clear in my mind that if those performances don't work, regardless of anything else in the movie, the makeup effects being good, the story being cool, whatever, if the acting there, in particular from those two leads, is doesn't work, the movie doesn't work. Just
yeah,
is
all
as simple.
collapses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just as simple as that. There might be other things about it that are okay, but the movie doesn't work as a serious thing if those performances aren't convincing. And I just got really lucky, man. I found after just looking for a long time and not giving up, just it can be harder to find because the film was shot non-union. We didn't do it through the union, which was just a budgetary thing. We couldn't really afford it. But it's tough because the union is great because they just have this beautiful talent pool. You see, every actor that comes in, even from some small little bit role, is like a really seasoned professional actor. And when you go non-union, it's always a risk. It can literally just be any person, and in that age range, especially a little bit older in like the 50s range. If an actor hasn't made it by the time they get to that age, it's usually unfortunately because they're just not any good. So finding people in that age can be difficult. But we got really lucky. The male actor Peter Zizzo, he's like a music guy. Like he wrote music for like Celine Dion. He's like a songwriter guy. Yeah, like Avril Lavigne, and he's like written all these like random songs. And then he just decided he wanted to try acting, and within like half a year he was already booking things. And so we got him very early on, and it was just like finding someone, that needle in the haystack. And same with Terry Apple. She's a voiceover actress, and she decided she wanted to do more on camera right at the time that we were making our movie. So it was just finding them, and then like they were just so perfect. Obviously you're kind of guiding the performance, and like if they had questions about intention or what motivation is, and sometimes they'd be like suggest things that sounded better than my dumb dialogue. But it's by and large, it's just they're really great and they've really got the material and just brought it.
What they sell, what the two central actors really sell is the poignancy that really comes with, selling one's soul to pursuing like an evil individual like this. So I thought they really got the sense of it, whatever happens, it will be a hollow victory because so many people have died in not appalling circumstances. And I really wanted to compliment the film for that, for having that undertow of like poignancy. I mean, which must come with law enforcement roles, right? I wondered, like, did you see that as an important element of the film?
For sure, I wanted to, honor law enforcement to some extent. I respect these people and the job that they do, and I wanted it to also just, I wanted that to all come across realistically, though. Like the toughest thing there is you don't want to have them breaking down and going into some big monologue where they're crying about this and that. It was always like, it's all subtext and it's all, you can tell that these things have had some kind of effect on them, um, without having to like directly address it, I guess.
Yeah, it all has to be quite contained in it because that's environment in which you're operating within this true crime, I mean, there is that one distant shot of like someone breaking down, but I thought that was discreet. That was done really discreetly. I mean, you have made a film with a boogeyman character that is no doubt going to terrify people. It certainly terrified me, and a lot of it comes down to the mask, like the mask design, like how. I mean, I suppose you could go back to things like Halloween and so on and so forth. How important is the design of a mask in a film like this, do you think?
Oh, it's incredibly important. It's like it's so important because it's, it's the iconography. It's that's your killer, that's your source of evil, and it all gets channeled into the face. And yeah, I was very aware of trying to create some kind of iconic killer if I could. And that mask, though, so the man that plays Mr. Shiny, our killer, his name is Jesse Clarkson, and he came onto the project not as an actor originally, but as a production designer. That's usually what he does. He's built like models for like The Dark Knight and like done some like crazy amazing work. But we came to him and he came on board to do production design, and then he was interested in doing the mask and already had ideas. But then he like came to me and was like, "What do you think about me playing Mr. Shiny?" And I was like, I didn't know that you even had any interest in being an actor or anything like that. And he's like, yeah, I've done some stuff before. And he had done a film, a James Franco movie called The Vault, an indie film where he played a killer, a masked killer, like a bank robber. And so I watched that movie and I was a bit skeptical. But then when I saw the movie, he actually is a character, like he's performing behind the mask. He has like a physicality and like a presence and the body language where I actually saw, oh, he is like he's an actor. He can actually perform. So I was like, for sure, that would be awesome, man. He's really tall. I don't know, he's
Yeah.
6 something. He's a big guy, but also very like kind of skinny. He just has great proportions for this kind of thing. And then the mask, he was of course obsessed because it became his character at that point. And I know the only real direction I gave to him was keep it simple and incorporate the three planet kind of pattern that we use. That's part of the symbol. We have this triangle that has these 4 points, but three on the out symbol. And so I know he took that and it's just very simple. It's just two eyes and a mouth, basically. But he was also inspired by Pink Floyd's film The Wall, because there's one
Oh,
point in
yes.
that film where there's like these weird children that have these weird faces. And that image, he combined that with, in his brain and came up with this mask. And the first time I saw it, I was like, that's perfect, man. It's simple, but it's really disturbing in like an uncanny valley kind of way or something like that.
Reminds me of the actor that they got to play Bob in Twin Peaks. I think was a set decorator, wasn't he? And it's like, no, we get him in the movie, and then history was made, right?
Yeah.
History was made.
Yeah. Yeah.
Serendipitous. That's fascinating to hear that. I've been because at the point that we record this, we are in the build up to Halloween. We're in October. People engage with horror, like literature, films, and so on. And I've thought, um, I've been speculating on why it is that people embrace horror, and I think from my point of view, it takes us up to the boundary of our own knowledge and then pushes beyond it in a really weird way. Like horror can be really operatic and really interesting. I wondered like why do you think horror resonates with people? It's a broad question, I know. Apologies for that.
I think, I think in the broadest sense, it's because it's their stories about death, and they're a way storytelling is always a way to cope or contextualize things in life, I think. And horror movies are about the one of the, biggest things in our lives, and or at least in our thoughts sometimes, which is death and our own mortality. So there's stories about that. I think that is just always for the entire time that human beings have been here and will be here are going to be fascinated by this kind of story because they're stories about us, right? And then I think it's a Stephen King quote that he said, "Why do people like horror?" And it's because it's the forbidden. It's like shining the flashlight into the dark that you can't see. It's the promise of being shown something titillating in some way that you know, you wouldn't see in your normal life and that maybe you shouldn't see, but you're going to see it anyway, kind of thing. For all those reasons and just because it's just horror is just cool as fuck. I don't know, man.
Yeah, you get I get a sense that as a filmmaker you can have a lot of fun with horror, right? You can do a lot of things with it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would love to make one of those Final Destination movies because that's the whole gag, right? That's the whole gig. Yeah, it's so fun because the stakes are so high in a horror movie. It's the highest stakes is death. So, if you can set up your story in a way where you care about what's going on, you care about the characters, you can have a lot of fun messing with people for sure.
Yeah, it's a question of setting death up and then what do you do with it? Like how do you play it out, right, in the context of the film? Well, Stuart, it's been fantastic to talk to you. Just one final question, which you referred to Grave Encounters, your previous film earlier, and that film has gone on to have a real cult shelf life with horror fans and with found footage fans. Like, what do you make of that? Like the fact that the film has had such a half-life like that.
It's just really, it's the best thing in the world, man. That's why we wanted to make it. It's why you want to make movies to have some kind of impact in some kind of way on people that they see it and they remember it or they're affected by it. I mean, it's the coolest thing. It's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, and fond memories of making it as well.
Oh, definitely. I can still smell that building in my mind, like even though it was so long ago. Yeah, it was, we were all 25, 26 years old, me and Colin just running around with no supervision, it felt like, just making this horror film, for no money, just very DIY, just kind of just going and doing it and trying to make everything work as best we could. Yeah, so nothing but fond memories. It was a great experience.
Yeah, there's the magic. I imagine, yeah, there's the magic of filmmaking. Yeah. Well, Stuart, thanks very much. It's been fantastic to talk to you about Strange Harvest. I really enjoyed the film. As a big horror fan, I was genuinely freaked out, and I I mean that is the highest compliment. So, all the best with the film, and thanks for talking to me.
Cool, thank you.